Throughout automotive history, there have always been cars we enthusiasts associate with the word legendary. Legendary like the Mark II GT40 or Mazda 787B. We all know these cars and their incredible stories and accomplishments. But what about legendary cars that aren't well known? What about unsung heroes and their stories and accomplishments? Their achievements may not be as sexy as a Le Mans win, but some have saved their manufacturers from financial ruin, others have changed the entire industry. For example, BMW nearly went bankrupt in the late 50s. Arguably, it's quite possible they wouldn't exist today if it weren't for the BMW 700. This was unveiled in 1959 and sold just under 190,000 units in 5 years. The 700 was a savior. Speaking of saviors, the Benz W111 was the first car designed with crumple zones to help disperse energy during an impact. Now, this is not as sexy as the Le Mans win, but it's world-changing in its own right. The Jeep XJ was a revolutionary design that laid the foundational mold for the SUV class with its lightweight unibody design, simplicity, and durability. The SUV class has followed this formula ever since and has remained dominant in the marketplace. All 5 cars I mentioned in these examples have either achieved monumental motorsports accomplishments or saved their brand or have influenced the industry in some form or fashion. What if I were to tell you that there was an unsung hero that not only saved its company, it dominated its racing class and it influenced the entire industry? A performance vehicle so unappreciated that it would take well over a decade for the right owners to use the platform to its full potential. Welcome to Spec M. This is the story of the Porsche 955 Cayenne. Chapter 1: Necessity. In 1992, it had been established that Porsche as a company was heading into a financial void with a reported loss of 240 million Deutschmarks, which would have equated to 132 million US at the time. Porsche's sales had dropped dangerously low, selling 14,000 units in 1993 compared to 50,000 units in 1986. Even worse, the US market itself only saw 3,000 units sold. These numbers are important and we will revisit them towards the end of the video. During this same period, specifically in 1992, Vinalin Wiedeking was a spokesman for the board and then became chairman of Porsche in 1993, after being with the organization since 1983. He started out as a director's assistant at Porsche AG in Stuttgart at the age of 31. It's worth noting that Wiedeking had already made his first million at the age of 30 in real estate investments alone. Immediately taking action, Wiedeking optimized production by implementing a Toyota-style assembly line.
This is the Toyota production system, where manufacturers eliminate waste to provide customers with well-made products in a timely manner. At the heart of the Toyota production system are the concepts of intelligent automation and just-in-time manufacturing.
This was common amongst most manufacturers across the road at the time, but had been a rather late implementation for Porsche AG. He also eliminated the internal model hierarchy, discontinuing the 968 platform, his ideology being, the front-engine rear-wheel drive 968 had been considered the Porsche you would buy if you couldn't afford the 911. This is obviously disagreeable to many of us enthusiasts given that the FR platform was a great performer both on-road and on-track. The dismissal of the 968 was a great disappointment to many enthusiasts, but Wiedeking's next platform to take priority would be an absolute hit even till this very day. Chapter 2: The Boxster. This was the original Boxster concept, inspired by the 356 Cabriolet, Speedster, and 550 Spider. Porsche cut production costs by utilizing the Toyota parts bin strategy. The Boxster shared the same bonnet, headlights, interior components, and engine architecture to 996, which was the current 911 at the time. Contrary to popular belief, the Boxster may have initiated a turnaround but didn't save Porsche. Porsche AG themselves had acknowledged this. The sales division had clearly demonstrated this using market research. In the long run, Porsche would have ended up in a downward slope again. And I quote, "An analysis commissioned by the department overseen by Hans Riedel, the board member responsible for sales at the time, has showed the legendary 911 and new mid-engine Boxster alone would not guide the manufacturer to a secure future. It was apparent that the sports car had its limits on the market." At this point in time, there were two platforms in Porsche's lineup, the 996 911 and the 986 Boxster. For the third Porsche, there were 5 vehicle concepts that were being evaluated, of which only 2 were seriously considered. Those 2 concepts were a luxury minivan and a high-performance SUV. That's right, a Porsche minivan concept. Thankfully, being the largest market for Porsche at the time, Porsche AG North America declined and blocked the minivan idea. What Anton Hunger, head of communications, had evaluated was that in the US, the minivan market was prominent among families with a high number of children and low income. The SUV in the US market, however, did well everywhere across all income brackets. This solidified the choice. Porsche's third vehicle would be a high-performance premium luxury SUV. From the very onset, Porsche was looking to partner with another manufacturer to develop this completely new model. Initially, this partner was Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes was planning to launch the M-Class in 1997 and welcomed Porsche with open arms to add its design language to the project. This was not the first time these two monumental manufacturers would co-develop a vehicle. Mercedes-Benz commissioned Porsche to build a 500e in the late 80s due to its engineering staffing stretched thin with the development of the S-Class. Make sure to subscribe, as I currently have a dedicated 500e episode in the works. Porsche will be utilizing some of the same 500e design essence, making a Porsche-tuned performance version of the Benz chassis. Klaus-Gerhard Volpert, first vice president for the Cayenne product line from 1998 to 2010, stated, "At that stage, we envisioned the Porsche SUV as a high-performance offshoot of the Mercedes, with its own exterior design, a lot of M-Class technology, but engine and chassis components from us." In summer 1996, the Benz-Porsche collab was on track and making progress. However, by the end of the year, the collaboration had ended due to financial disagreements between the two automakers. With the M-Class chassis off the table, Porsche was now starting back from zero. It was then that Porsche presented the concept to Volkswagen. At this time, grandson of Porsche founder Ferdinand Piëch was chairman of Volkswagen's executive board. Note that the Porsche and Volkswagen organizations weren't part of the same group at this time. When Piëch was presented the Porsche SUV concept, he determined that Volkswagen could also use an SUV. Additionally, he recognized the potential for a partnership of the two companies. VW would use this new platform in development of the Touareg, and Porsche would use it for the Cayenne. So began Project Colorado. Project Colorado would be different than any other in Porsche's history. Porsche would use a highly secured and concealed facility to begin development of the Cayenne, which internally was known as the Enduro or E1. The facility was a former computer assembly plant and was so secure that no one could be on the premises without an escort. This same compound would also host the development of the Carrera GT soon after. Both the Cayenne and the Touareg would essentially share the same core construction. The Cayenne had a different D-pillar angle, giving the body a sportier architecture. Porsche was dedicated to developing a credible embodiment of their renowned performance. The major difference this time was that they were looking for exceptional performance on-road and off-road. And I quote, "For us, it was clear that if we made an off-road vehicle, then its performance must also be absolutely compelling off-road." The Cayenne stands for a spirited driving experience. It doesn't care about the surface. The general consensus regarding the E1 or 955 Cayenne was, this was an all-new design, or even genre, with no trend or mold to utilize. Porsche didn't know what would be the best to offer, so they offered the best of everything they could possibly think of. Staying true to that sentiment, Porsche opted to equip the E1 with an aluminum block and head 4.5-liter V8. This was the M48 series, which was the first V8 Porsche had introduced since 1986, with the premiere of the 928 S4. Though this was Porsche's third generation 8-cylinder, the M48 platform itself was an entirely new design. Base models were equipped with a 3.2-liter VR6 that was shared in the Volkswagen Touareg line. As excellent as the VR6 is in its own right, its performance is underwhelming in the 5,000-pound 955 platform. So for that reason, we will primarily be covering the V8 versions. Though this was Porsche's third generation 8-cylinder, the M48 platform itself was an entirely new design, developed specifically for the Cayenne platform, which is quite a significant detail. The M48, or naturally aspirated version, was featured in the Cayenne S. This was equipped with dual overhead cams, variable valve timing, and a Vari-O-Ram dual plenum intake manifold. The Vari-O-Ram intake manifold was Porsche patent technology actually carried over from the 964 Carrera RS. It then became standard on 911s from 1996 and on, specifically starting from the M64-21 engine. This intake manifold changes the length of the inlet ducting depending on engine speed and load. The M48 has a displacement of 4.5 liters with an overscore 93mm bore and 83mm stroke. The compression ratio was 11.5 to 1, outputting 335 horsepower and 310 foot-pounds of torque. The M4850 is the twin-turbo variant of the M48. Both engines utilize many of the same components and are generally identical. However, the M4850 is obviously tailored for boost and increased power output, making 450 horsepower and 457 foot-pounds of torque. This boosted variant uses an alucil block, unlike the NA-spec M48, which uses Locasil cylinder bores. The Locasil bore is essentially a sacrificial cylinder bore liner made with high-content silicone fibers. In comparison, the turbo M48.50 block is entirely made of high silica content aluminum alloy. Essentially, this alucil mixture grants the lowest possible melting point, and generally, the process has been found to increase cylinder durability. Additionally, the M4850 features forged pistons and piston oil squirters to aid with cooling and lubrication. The Vari-O-Ram dual plenum intake manifold is no longer needed in the twin-turbo platform. The twin-turbo configuration used was manufactured by Tokyo-based IHI Corporation. Aside from manufacturing automotive, heavy, and even space equipment, IHI has been long associated with Formula One. The RA168E from the legendary McLaren Honda MP44 utilized IHI turbines along with the Lotus 100T in 1988. More recently, when the V6 hybrid platform was standardized in 2015, McLaren Honda again utilized IHI as a turbine supplier. The IHI turbos on the M4850 were designed for continuous 160,000 RPM operation. Max boost pressure was reached very early at 2,500 RPM to mitigate any sensation of turbo lag. The DME was capable of reducing boost pressure as needed in altitudes above 2,200 meters. Aiding in functionality and durability off-road, the oil supply and oil scavenging from the turbochargers was designed to work even when driving on a 45-degree slope. The third and highest performing M48 variant was the M48.50S. The standard Cayenne turbo produced 450 horsepower and 457 foot-pounds of torque. But in 2006, the Turbo S model was released, making 521 horsepower and 531 foot-pounds of torque. This made the Cayenne Turbo S the second most powerful production Porsche ever built at the time, second only to the Carrera GT, which was a direct rival to the Ferrari Enzo during that era. Drivetrain and suspension would be just as impressive for the time. While the Touareg's drivetrain utilized an understeer-inducing 50-50 front and rear torque split, the Cayenne platform received 38% front and 62% rear torque distribution. The 955 was also equipped with a 2-speed transfer case. This is another factor that separated it from the X5 and ML of the day. The Cayenne was a true purpose-built off-road vehicle with a 2.7 reduction gear. This feature allows the driver to reduce the vehicle's speed at the same RPM 2.7 times across all gears. So the process of crawling across loose or technical terrain is much more easily controlled. The icing on the cake was the rear differential locker that was available in the advanced off-road equipment package. Another star feature in this package was Porsche's own sway bar disconnect system. In low range mode, the sway bars can be disengaged and will automatically re-engage at speeds over 31 miles per hour or 50 kilometers per hour. The 955 was also available with static and adjustable ride heights via air suspension. The wading depth of the 955 was at minimum half a meter. Steel spring ground clearance was 217mm or 8.5 inches, while air-equipped variants were 243mm or 9.5 inches in off-road mode, and could go even higher to 273mm in a second selectable off-road mode, which equates to nearly 11 inches. No expense was spared on the braking hardware with the standard 6-piston front calipers and 350mm front ventilated disc. Even the rear had 4-piston calipers and 330mm rear disc. Porsche intended for the braking performance to remain high during prolonged downhill use, even while towing. With the development stage complete, it was now time for Porsche to begin production and reveal Project Colorado to the world. Chapter 4: Success. During a pre-show event, Wiedeking stated, "Porsche is indeed facing what might be its greatest challenge. This day, there is no doubt in my mind, will be of historic significance to the company." Wiedeking was absolutely right, despite the historical significance of this premiere being underappreciated. Reportedly, the E1 was widely accepted within Porsche, and the public, well, let's just say it was a pretty big deal. Remember, a decade earlier, Porsche had only sold 3,000 units in the US across its entire model line. 2003 was the first year of release and saw over 13.6 thousand units sold in the US alone. This was twice the number of Boxsters sold that year and even took top position from the 996. The trend of the Cayenne being Porsche's #1 selling model would continue for quite a while. Wiedeking and the management team actually got their projections for the first year completely wrong. They estimated that the freshman 2003 Cayenne would sell 25,000 units per year. Over the 8-year span of the 955, there was a total of 276,600 units sold. That equates to just under 35,000 vehicles per year, nearly 10,000 more than they projected. The second year after its debut, the 04 Cayenne sold even more, selling 20,000 solely in the US alone. This vehicle saved Porsche. The Cayenne was not simply a fad, trend, or niche, it was Porsche's champion. All the numbers and analytics support this. Annual revenue from 2003 was 4.8 million, but by 2010, the annual revenue was 9.23 billion. Throughout this entire 8-year span, the Cayenne was Porsche's #1 selling vehicle in the US market, only slightly overtaken by the 911 in 2006, likely due to it being the first year release of the 997 generation. But not only would it dominate its manufacturer's lineup and sales, it would go on to dominate one of the most brutal yet unknown rally events in modern history. That's right, I'm referring to the Trans-Siberia Rally. The E1 platform was unique, class-wise. In fact, nothing could compete with the first-gen Cayenne on-road or off-road, especially in the Turbo S configuration. Starting in 2006, Porsche was able to prove this with its naturally aspirated Cayenne S version via a rally raid event called the Trans-Siberia Rally. At 7,000 kilometers in length, the event was 2 to 3 times longer than the Baja 1000 and utilized primarily stock street-legal vehicles. The rally ran from Moscow to Mongolia, through the Ural Mountains, subarctic forests, and Mongolian deserts. Even more impressive was the fact that there were no major chassis or suspension modifications for the vehicles competing in this race. Interiors were gutted which saved weight, but then spare tires and reserve fuel tanks were added back to the mass. A and B pillar reinforcements, bolt-in roll cages, winch systems, larger tires, and underbody skid plates also contributed to the added weight. During the third running of the Trans-Siberia Rally in 2006, out of 28 teams, 2 Cayenne S placed first and second on the podium, winning the event. During this season, the rally was over 10,000 kilometers, starting from Berlin and ending in Mongolia. Jürgen Kern, the podium driver, and his colleagues had only made slight modifications to the production Cayennes they ran. Of course, they equipped more aggressive off-road tires as well as skid plates, snorkels, winches, and auxiliary lighting. Otherwise, the Cayennes were equipped with the factory off-road package options, like the locking diff and adjustable air suspension. The outstanding performance of the 2 near-factory stock Cayenne S's had the attention of Porsche. As a result, Porsche extended its customer sports program to include a 26-unit, limited-run, rally-ready Trans-Siberia edition Cayenne. This model used the Cayenne S as a base and was then optimized for a long-distance rally. The intention was for private teams to be able to purchase this package and compete in the upcoming 2007 Trans-Siberia Rally. The Trans-Siberia Edition benefited from the first Cayenne model line update, which was the new power unit. It received a 4.8-liter V8 replacing the 4.5, increasing the power output from 335 horsepower and 310 foot-pounds of torque to 385 horsepower and 370 foot-pounds of torque. Competing against rivals like the Toyota Land Cruiser, the Mitsubishi Pajero, Suzuki Grand Vitara, unsurprisingly, the Cayenne absolutely dominated and outclassed the entire field. Cayenne swept the entire podium, even taking 7 out of the top 10 places. Quoting Jürgen Kern, whose responsibilities included looking after those who didn't make it to the finish line, all the teams were independently run, with the servicing organized by Porsche. The vehicle survived the rally well, and most of them were even used to drive the Trans-Siberia Tour a second time. In 2008, 19 teams took part with the same vehicles. We didn't build any new cars for this, and didn't even change the chassis, Kern recalls. The only innovation was an even more robust off-road tire for the long gravel sections in Russia and Mongolia. The on-road and off-road potential for the Cayenne was proven once and for all. Conclusion. The E3, or third generation facelift, is now rolling off the production line, and the millionth Cayenne is already long gone history. In 2021 alone, more than 98,000 Cayennes were sold globally. The 4-liter Turbo GT variant has a 7-minute 39-second lap time around Nürburgring. A diesel variant of the Cayenne S broke the world record for heaviest aircraft pull at 628,000 pounds. Most importantly, the livelihood of Porsche is reserved for their $32 billion market cap.
By 2007, Porsche's market cap is 32 billion euros.
Crazy.
So that's 100x market cap growth. Is that right? Did you say 300 million to 32 billion?
Yes, that is 100x market cap growth in a decade.
This is all great news, but bittersweet. Bitter due to the fact that the modern Cayenne is more of a crossover than an SUV. But this all in turn makes the 955 and 957 more desirable, appreciated, and special. There is an affordable rally platform out there that was developed and designed by one of the greatest sports car manufacturers in the world. It's also been proven and battle tested in one of the most grueling rally events in the world. Not only that, it absolutely dominated that event. And in today's market, due to its age, almost any enthusiast can own one. For now at least. This is a good thing, because we're seeing enthusiasts take this platform to the next level, so much so that there's even a small aftermarket growing for this SUV. As someone that's owned a 955 years ago, I find it amazing to see people build what I wish I could have. I had envisioned how cool it would be to turn my Cayenne S into a rally rig with upgraded suspension, Baja style bumpers, and a light rack, but this was during a time where the aftermarket was non-existent. This would have been crazy 10 years ago, as everyone only looked at the Cayenne as a luxury barge. Unless you were an actual fan of this platform, then of course you knew its true potential. But now, thanks to this growing community of enthusiasts, we get to see these vehicles do what Porsche intended for them to. Additionally, this allows the 955 and 957 platforms to remain special and desirable. Not only was this documentary meant to be, per se, a love letter to the first-gen Cayenne, but a love letter and show of appreciation to those current owners who are keeping this platform special and alive. And also a letter of appreciation to you, the viewer, as I assume you showed some form of interest in this vehicle. And if you didn't before, hopefully you do now. Thank you. I look forward to seeing what people are doing with this platform in the near and far future, and who knows, maybe there will be another Cayenne in my future. We'll see what happens. Until next time.